we would decide, here's what we want to do. We had certain platforms that we used that that whatever the new application would have to run on top of. So we would then look for vendors that may be able to, one thing we had was, we had an enterprise system for SAP. So a lot of our programs needed to, and we also had a certain type of control systems in our plants, is another example. So we would go then and look for firms or groups that had familiarity with whatever it was that was going to be the foundation of what we're going to build off of, and then would and go for a search and with who may be applicable that would be able to support what we were looking to do based on kind of the requirements that we would have to work under, and we generally would form a working team that would be responsible for identifying companies or firms that could help support the application that we want to put in, and then we would have an oversight or a steering team then that group would report to track the progress and then also that working team would make whatever recommendations as far as who we wanted to go with for then the overall deployment of whatever we wanted to put in place.
And how often are you reassessing your providers? Is it when they really mess something up that you go back and revisit that, or
so I would say that
monitoring the market? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that we generally, as a general principle, we were never. I would say, well, first off, the company I worked for was fairly big, so we had a number of IT people in our company. We were able to, do some of the execution ourselves. So we would look for somebody that would partner with us, and some, so we kind of knew what we were looking for. But we always, I would say that we honestly, we really didn't stick with one particular vendor and just say, okay, well, we have this new application with some exceptions. If it was something that was operating, and all we wanted to do was enhance it or make some modifications to it. Obviously, in those cases, we would probably go, the firm that helped us set it up the first time would be the most logical then to help us with any kind of enhancements or improvements. But if it was something that was relatively new that we were looking for, we wouldn't go back and just say, well, we've worked well with vendor X, so let's just go back and have vendor X come in here and help work on this, because part of this whole area, there's been tremendous advances and improvements in all aspects of it, because of the fact that most on the process side, we went from just looking at information, vibration information, temperature and conditions and such. Just 5 or 6 years ago, it was more traditional just to look at all of that and watch trends of it and see if it went outside of bands and such. Well, nowadays there's all kind of statistical models that are used and much more predictive type of applications that are run on all of that, and everybody's advancing at a pretty significant rate. So if you just stuck with the same company, you may lose out on the fact that others have a more effective way to be doing those things. So we tended not to, although it may take a little bit more time to have to vet through various different vendors, we tended not to just stick with the same build. I would say relationships in this area were not where you would just stay with the same group all the time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
what
we would
trends
put, we would.
Oh, go.
Okay. No, so I guess
going.
just to kind of complete that thought, we unless these were relatively minor tweaks, we would go out and do a full evaluation. I would say for the majority of the larger enterprise kind of projects that we would be doing. Like I said, we wouldn't just stick with one individual, one company.
Got it. Talk to me about what you're seeing in the industry from a pricing perspective. I've sensed that there's a lot of desire not to just turn on the time and materials billable hour sorts of arrangements and use more, maybe outcomes-based pricing or milestone-based pricing, fixed pricing.
Yeah, I would say
that changing. Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the one thing we always had to watch out with was that is to understand. Sometimes you can get you can get a better price, but the scope of what the vendor was doing was less, and you wind up having to do a lot of the work yourself. So overall, that sometimes wasn't the most effective way for us to do it because we could have used those resources doing something else. So, but in general, I would say that milestone. The other thing that's critical, I would say, from a pricing standpoint, is a lot of these projects. It's not like building a plant or building, or going out and buying some type of component and then doing an estimate of how long it's going to take to put it in. All of these good intentions, but sometimes the scope would change. There were technical issues, and we had a lot of sensitivity on trying to make sure that these projects got done on time. Because the other thing was, obviously, if you do a time and materials and things are delayed, you may wind up spending more money because there's a delay and you're just burning a lot of hours. So we would have, I would say, we always wanted to have some milestones, and even if it was on a billable rate, we wanted to have some way to that the vendor had some skin in the game if there were delays, where there would be some type of concessions or some type of penalties if there were delays in the implementation, of whatever the project was. Our preference would be to get some type of a fixed price, and in some cases that was that was how we did these. But I would say the larger ones, there was always going to be there was still always some type of milestones that we always would set to help with help on the cost management.
Do you think that's increasing in usage, or has it just kind of gotten to the point where it's the de facto sort of?
I would say it's almost I'm not sure it's increasing. I think that's somewhat of an expected way of doing business now. I don't think that it's uncommon. I would say, again, unless it's a smaller type item or effort. But it's uncommon to not have some type of milestones and it's uncommon just to have, we'll negotiate a rate and then we'll give you an estimate of how much time we think it'll take. But if it takes more than that, well then you're going to pay more. Those types, I would say, are you know, that's not the norm anymore.